Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag. From the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, we're back this week to talk a little bit about some basketball and some football and some all kinds of other fun stuff. I guess we're going to just start out with this here. Basketball games from Friday night. We're going to break down the girls' games and the boys' games into different sections because I think it's kind of that important to talk about each game in its own way. Plus, I think there were some pretty significant highlights from both games that are don't necessarily have anything to do with the outcomes of the games themselves. So we're going to start out with the boys' game because the highlight of that one was the fact that Tucker Kirkpatrick managed to put up some points and played his first game since the first game of the season, which was on December 2nd when they played at Monroe County. And I think I'd mentioned last week, they'd put him in the book for the 3 games when they were in the post-Christmas tournament, but he didn't play any minutes. So I was kind of curious to see if he would get on the floor in that game against Barren County, and he did. And, his first shot was it hit the front of the rim, so it kind of showed probably that he hadn't. Maybe the nerves were kicked in. He's had a knee injury that he's coming back from, and maybe, he didn't quite have his legs ready yet. But as that game went along, I thought he played fairly well.
Yeah, for the circumstances, I'm happy for him. I mean, you don't, as a senior, you don't want to miss your entire year.
Right.
And so I was happy for Tucker to get a chance to play, and he's clearly limited right now. But who knows? It may get stronger as the year goes on. But he did make a big 3 that was big at the time, and I think just putting him in the lineup was probably a momentum boost for Glasgow, and the kind of energized the crowd. And then he made 2 free throws at the end of the game that was important to kind of ice it.
Yeah.
So his contribution was it was limited, but it was quite effective.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I mean, you think of these things being kind of programmed out, so to speak, that they had put him in the book for the games, the post-Christmas tournament. What was great was the fact that they knew they were going to be playing this game against Barren County on January 3rd at home, rivalry game, district game. It is a great opportunity to put Tucker on the floor in the game and let him have that emotional impact because you knew the crowd was going to be fired up for it.
If he was medically cleared,
yeah.
and he was medically cleared,
Right.
I mean, you can have all the aspirations that you want, but if the player is A, not medically cleared, or B, not capable of helping you, then you just can't do it. Or if you do it, that's not very wise.
Yeah.
And he was cleared, and just by being on the floor, he stretches the defense because you have to guard him, and he's the one weapon on Glasgow that has been reliable the last couple of years in terms of 3-point shooting.
Yeah, and Willett talked about that after the game. He was asked how many minutes did you think Kirkpatrick was going to get to play, and he said, it was going to be up to Tucker. He's going to tell me whether or not he could be in the game, and then we were going to see how he was moving, especially defensively to see if it was a liability. If so, then he was going to come out. But he, like I said, he played well enough under the circumstances to help Glasgow out. They won the game 52-47, which there was something about that game beyond Tucker and that I think relates to the girls' game as well that Barren County won, and that is this experience. I really thought that Glasgow's been in some tough games, not just this season, but last season in the regional tournament, even the year before that. Games that they've lost down the stretch against Warren Central, in games that they've won and lost this year against tough competition. And I thought that was a key difference in the game is that Glasgow kept doing what it wanted to do, even when it was down, and the Scotties came back and won the game. And basically, as you mentioned, Tucker and others hit free throws down the stretch that sealed the win for them.
It has not been unlike, though, the last 4 times they played, though.
True.
The last 4 times they played, it's gone down to the wire.
Mm-hmm.
Overtime, double overtime.
Right.
I mean, the only difference between this game and the previous games, this game was a little bit lower scoring.
Yeah.
There was very few free throws shot, which is incredibly surprising in a rivalry game where sometimes there's a crazy amount of fouls just because of the excitement of the players and the aggression of the sport. Barren only shot 7 free throws. They were 4 out of 7, and Glasgow only shot 8.
Yeah.
So not a lot of free throws shot, which is a little weird. But it was a very similar game. Both teams are fairly experienced. I do agree that I think Glasgow's had a harder schedule this year, and they've been in nip and tuck games all year. Basically, the only blowout they've had was North Arden in Monroe County, and Barren has had several of their games have been blowouts, and they've also lost a couple of overtime games. But Barren was in control of the game for much of the first half, and Glasgow surged in the second half. They switched to a zone that looked like at times bothered Barren. Barren did not shoot the ball well at all.
Yeah.
And that has been a problem that they've had, and it was a recurring problem. They just did not make a lot of shots. In fact, the only player they had in double figure was Aiden Eichen, and he had 19 points and 9 rebounds. But they did not shoot very well from outside. I think Bandy had 9 points, but the zone it's not a surprise they went zone. They played a lot of 3-2 zone. It wasn't surprising that to me they went zone, but it was just something that Barren did not make a lot of shots. And then the Barren has had trouble the last couple of years of going through these scoring ruts, is what I call it, where they go 4 or 5 minutes without scoring, and that's hard to do. Barren has been really good all year defensively, and holding Glasgow to only 52 points is good. If you asked Warren before the game, if you only give up 52, do you take it or not take it? He would have taken that.
Yeah,
but you got to score more than that, and you give a couple of things for Glasgow. Bowen played a heck of a game for them.
Yes, he did.
He had he was 3 for 5 from 3, and he had 13 points.
Yeah.
And I know he's capable of making threes, but he's not a consistent three-point shooter. Well,
right.
Boy, he stepped up and made them. Franklin had another good game. He had 14 points and I think 9 rebounds. But really kind of the difference between the two teams these last couple of years when they play head-to-head is Sorrell. Sorrell is just somebody that he's just a really good player, but he has given Barren fits. He gives a lot of people's fits, but he had 18 points, and he just seems to make a lot of big plays down the stretch. Barren has a hard time containing him, and he's going to have the ball at the end of the game. And,
right.
And the beauty of if your guard is your best player, then you pretty much know you're going to get a shot at the end, or a shot when you need a shot. He's either going to get one, or he's going to give the ball to somebody who's going to get a good shot, and that's a great luxury to have. And Sorrell had another big game, 18 points.
Yeah, you mentioned the down the stretch part. I mean, you look at Sorrell during the course of the game, and you're like, because he's not necessarily a great outside shooter, and so he's missed a couple of threes before you get to the fourth quarter. But you get to the last 5 minutes, and he manages to get to the rim. He doesn't just get fouled; he also makes the shot.
Yep.
Which is probably the most impressive part of it. I mean, you get a bunch of people who can get to the rim, draw a foul, but they don't get the shot. He's turning 3-point plays. I think he did it twice in the last 5 minutes.
And he's playing with a lot of confidence. He should. He started for 4 years. Coming off a game winner against Warren Central. That always helps, your confidence. And, he's a really good player. I mean, he's a good player that's confident. He's got a lot of experience. And he's not only is he talented, but he's got a lot of athletic ability. He's just hard to keep. It's hard to keep him on the perimeter. Yeah. Because of he's really good with the ball and he's really athletic.
You mentioned Bowen Haney. Also, the thing about Haney is the reason a lot of times you look at the box score and you don't see a bunch of points from him is because a lot of times at his size he's being asked to guard any number of people on the floor. I think he guarded Aiden Eichen. He guarded Will Bandy. He may have even guarded the point guard for a little while. I mean, he plays all over the floor defensively.
He's a player that I can tell you a lot of people in the region like to have.
Oh yeah,
because Bowen Haney is about 6'5", 6'6", I guess. He's long, lanky. Can guard, as you mentioned, multiple players. He has that ability, and against Barren, when he's 3 out of 5 from 3, that's a hard cover.
Yeah,
especially when you throw Kirkpatrick out there too, because now you got 2 people that you have to keep an eye on, which really opens it up a little bit more for Sorrell and Franklin.
Yeah,
I mean, I was surprised. They only scored 52 points. If you told me they scored 52, I thought Barren may win. I'm really surprised they scored 52. and Bowen Haney had 13 of them.
Right.
So, Barren overall defensively has been good all year, and they did a good job as well. But during the key moments down the stretch, those last 5 or 6 minutes of the game, Sorrell was really good.
One of the things about this that Cunningham mentioned also after the game was that Barren has 5 losses, and they all look very similar.
Right.
They just have not, in those 5 losses, they've not been able to finish the games effectively, I think.
Lost 2 in overtime.
Yeah, I mean, either as a product of turnovers or just not making shots or whatever in those 5 games. And I'm sure to some degree what's happening is you're getting so much out of Bandy, especially on the boards, because he had a great game on the boards also, he and Niken against Glasgow, and gave Barren several second opportunities. But also, they need that one other player that can hit a shot under those pressure situations, I think.
Well, oftentimes, the good news for Barren is this: if you're losing games down the stretch, overtime, and you're losing games in the fourth quarter, whatever. One of the ways you have to look at it, if you're good enough to be that close, then you're good enough to win.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just takes a play here, a play there to kind of turn that. Mm-hmm. It's like sometimes it's fool's gold in football for a season when you win a bunch of games under a touchdown.
Right.
Well, those can also turn into losses real quickly.
Yeah.
And
a la Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I mean they can turn in a heartbeat. So from Barren's perspective, I think you have to spin it in a positive way.
Yeah.
We just need to make one more shot or do one more thing because we're there defensively. Now we just got to come up with some things where we can make a shot here or there, or maybe get a better shot. It's not just you don't want to put the pressure on. We just got to make shots. We got to get a better shot, and then that kind of takes it out of their mind that where I'm just not making. Well, let's get a better shot.
Yeah,
and Warren's good enough to figure some of that stuff out. It may just take a guard to make a play, break down a play, and create a shot here or there or whatever. But Barren is close. We'll see if they can get over the hump against the Glasgows. They have Bowling Green tomorrow.
Yeah.
Big game. The Warren Centrals are coming up Saturday. Can they get over that hump and get that one kind of that marquee win that may, who knows, can push them forward?
Yeah, as a coach, when you talk about, because Warren mentioned this after the game too, he said he learned some things, about himself and about the team in those final 5 minutes. But I think, just generically speaking, as a coach, when you look at that, what is it that you're looking to learn? Are you looking to learn a play that you could run?
Could
or
be.
Who you need to run a play for?
Both.
Okay.
Or who's in the game at the right spot. I mean,
Yeah.
there's several things. Warren's trying to play 9 or 10 people.
Yeah.
And I can just tell you as a high school coach, that's hard to do.
Right.
It's hard to play in a 32-minute game 9, 10, 11 people because what happens
unless you're just running up and down the floor.
That's
probably.
correct, and Barren can't play that way.
Right.
And it's just hard to do, and sometimes you feel guilty if somebody's not in, so you put them in. And sometimes players are so close together, it's hard to determine, who's better than who and so forth.
Yeah.
And
meaning in practice, they're not really separating themselves in any way. So you're
correct.
still trying to work it out in the game, I guess.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And sometimes I can just tell you, coaching-wise, it's easier to play 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Those guys know their roles. They get in that routine and so forth. And it may just come a point of time where Warren may just have to decide, listen, we got to figure out a rotation and go with it.
So is that part of it? I mean, basically, he's kind of looking to see who's going to separate themselves, and sometimes it's going to be a game that's going to let somebody separate themselves?
Or it could just be, eventually, we've played 15 games. Now I've got to make that call.
Yeah, I got you.
It's one of those deals, and I'm glad I don't have to make that call anymore because when you're dealing with interpersonal relationships, it's not easy to do. But it's also on the players to separate themselves.
Yeah.
And so I think part of that is figuring out maybe the right lineup that he's comfortable with at the end of games, those type of things. And sometimes it may just come down to who's playing well, who's not playing well. But I think it's part of it. I know because I've watched him throughout the years. This is a time of year where he'll work more in practice in late second situations and things like that. So it's that time of year where you start adjusting into more of those situations. But the easiest thing to do is when you got a player that you can just give the ball to and let them create and score.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the easiest thing to do.
A la Nick Sorrell.
Not everybody has those, though.
No, they don't. That's why he's one of the best players in the fourth region.
That's correct. Not everybody has that luxury to have that.
Yeah.
But when you do, boy, you better hold on to it because it's really, in today's game, the ability to create your shot or create a better shot for somebody else is invaluable.
Yeah.
Because teams scout well. It's so much easier to scout now because you can get films on people without even leaving the gym. They just come across there, and this district, I know, scouts each other very well. In the inner region, the top teams know what everybody's doing. Even more important, where you have a player who, regardless of how you're going to play them, I can go by you.
Right.
It doesn't matter what set you run. I can go by you and create a shot. Those players are the players at every level of basketball that you need.
So the message from this first segment is, and it'll bleed into the second segment here shortly, if you've got the best player on the floor, at least the best guard, you got the best chance to win.
Well, good players like Nick Sorrell, and I had them too, and those players can create things that sometimes other players can't create, and it's helpful. It doesn't mean you're going to win, but sometimes it gives you that opportunity to get that shot off.
Yep. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back to talk about the Lady Scotties versus the Trojanettes game.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, the girls' game, Barren County ended up winning, I think, by 14. I think it was the final. 67-53 was the final score. Elizabeth Bertram she had the best shooting night I've actually seen her have. I checked. I think unofficially she missed 7 shots. I didn't ask how many she took. It didn't feel like she missed that many shots. She must have missed a couple I didn't see.
She had 34 points, and she was 5 out of 11 from 3.
Yeah, and so I'm going to make this comment, and then I'm going to explain it a little bit. All right. So to me, Elizabeth Bertram is a volume scorer. But then again, so was Michael Jordan and LeBron James, and any scorer is a volume scorer in a way. They get their shots because they're the most trustworthy player on the team to score when you need a basket. But they don't always shoot at the greatest percentage. You know what I mean? And Friday night she had a great shooting night.
She did,
from what I saw, and she's and there was no slowing her down. I mean, she hit an early shot, and one of the things Piper said in the post-game press conference was that Bertram came over there and said, "I'm feeling it, Coach. I'm feeling it." And she's like, "Okay, we're going to give you the ball." And that's what you would expect. I mean, she's one of the better players, one of the best players in the fourth region. She may be the best scorer in the fourth region.
She may be the best player.
Yeah, she may be. I mean, because I've always thought she was an intuitive basketball player going way back when she was like in the 8th grade. She just had like a sense of basketball that you don't always see. But she's turned into just a great ball handler. I mean, and she's so aware of where she is on the floor, and she can shoot the ball from so many places or get to where she wants to be on the floor to take the shot she wants.
No, she's comfortable. She's been playing 5 years on the varsity.
Right.
And so she's very comfortable. Last year did wonders for them because getting to the state tournament, playing in all those high-pressure games.
Yep.
And this year it's just been, another step forward. And she is unquestioned. Last year she had to share the limelight.
Right.
She's unquestionably the best player on the team, and I think you can argue she's the best player in the region. Mm-hmm. And Friday night she showed that. Now, part of that had to do with pace and tempo.
Yeah.
The game was played exactly at the pace that Barren wants to play.
Yeah.
Glasgow has been playing faster, and Justin has made comments that he thinks his team plays better faster, and I agree with that. But this was not the type of game for Glasgow to play that pace. I think Justin, and I think you'll see it the next time they play, will try to control the pace a little bit more because this is exactly how Barren wants to play. Barren wants to press, and they want the game go as fast as possible for the most part. And it worked. I mean, they forced Glasgow into 24 turnovers. Mm-hmm. So Glasgow had trouble handling the ball against Barren's pressure.
Yeah.
And Barren jumped on. I mean, Elizabeth, she had 23 at half.
Right.
I mean, it was 39-31 at half. So, it looked like it was going to be an 80-70 pace game. I mean, they were at an incredible pace.
Yeah, she had 23, and I think Ashanti Gore had 14 or 15 for Glasgow.
Well, that was the other one. I mean, Ashanti played well. She had 26 points and 11 rebounds.
Yeah.
And Barren did not have a whole lot of answer for that, but it wasn't enough because they could not get the ball down the floor enough to get it to Ashanti. But the game was played from a Barren perspective at the perfect pace. And from the Glasgow perspective, I think they would prefer at a slower pace. Now, here's the problem. Guards dictate pace, and Barren did a great job of speeding up their guards.
Yeah,
and Barren's length, they're not overly big, but they are. Raven Ennis is long, and they've got some length, and that their pressure bothered Glasgow, and it got them playing at a little bit faster pace, and consequently, that's why the score. That's why the score was so high at one time, and that's also why Elizabeth was freed up with her 34. I think the second time we play, you may see it may be the same result. I don't know, but I think the pace will be different, and Justin will just knowing Justin will do everything he can to prevent Elizabeth from getting 34. He's normally really good at taking away your best strength and player, but in this case, they had no answer for her.
I thought there were two things during the course of the game that I saw. One is you talk about the pace. But here is what I saw. Even if Glasgow made a basket, what was happening was Barren was getting the ball in bounds. They were getting it to Elizabeth. She was getting where she wanted to be, and Glasgow was not quick enough to respond to it defensively.
They were not.
And then the flip side of that was the funny thing about the turnovers is a number of those turnovers actually happened in half-court offense. Just somebody like Katie Murphy or Macy Lockhart or Bertram or Ennis getting their hands on the ball or getting their hands on the dribble and just causing disruption that way.
I agree. I mean, Murphy is a really good defensive player.
She is indeed.
Very quick and so forth. No, a lot of the turnovers were not against any type of pressure at all. In fact, Barren did not pressure the entire time, but it was just having active hands.
Yeah.
And that type of pressuring that really caused Glasgow fits, and I said last week, I think, there was a debate between who's the second and third best team in the region.
Yeah.
I thought Barren was probably, based on their record, was probably a second, but probably best team, and I think right now, in fairness, they are.
Yeah.
And they'll play Bowling Green tomorrow. They may be the best. They may end up being the best. Who knows? But
if Bertram plays like that again, I would say yes.
She will have that opportunity against Bowling Green because Bowling Green wants to play fast too. Now Bowling Green is longer and they're a little quicker than Glasgow.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that game goes. It's the second time they played each other. We'll see if Barren can catch back up because they played well. The first time against Bowling Green, they led in the entire second half and then kind of ran out of gas in the second half.
Yeah,
they had trouble stopping their big kid inside. I don't know if her name is Jones or whatever, but that was their trouble. But I will say Friday night, Barren was the better team Friday night. Great atmosphere too. That was a fun game to watch in terms of the pace of the game. Actually, the pace was faster than the boys' game.
Yeah, it was. One of the things I thought, I mentioned that I thought there was a correlation between the boys' game and the girls' game, and one of them that I thought it was I was going to say intensity, but that's not exactly accurate. But it is, I think, intensity born out of a certain experience. So, meaning that the Trojanettes, they won the region last year. They made it, to the second round of the state tournament. Even though Bertram's the only full-time starter back or player that played a lot.
Carly Delk played.
Yeah, Carly Delk did. They have that we've been there, done this intensity that I thought Glasgow didn't necessarily have. Now, if you were to go back a few years, when Glasgow was in the same scenario, they came back the next year and they were like this.
There's an amazing carryover.
Yeah.
I've said it. You've heard me in here. I've said it. The year after you win a region, it's an incredible carryover.
Yeah.
If you just got a few players, that confidence is incredible. Actually, Glasgow is a more experienced team than Barren.
Yeah.
They start primarily juniors and seniors for the most part.
Yeah.
Gore and Adwell and Dynasty Page and things. They have a lot of experienced players out there. But and Barren is Elizabeth Bertram, Carly Delk are experienced, but they have a lot of younger kids too. But that I don't know why that carryover is, but it just seemed in my experience that carryover of playing in those big games, believing you can win, carries over to players who really didn't even contribute much,
right?
But they have that same feel for it, and it's amazing how that works out.
Yeah, and I thought that was a key difference in that game. Going back to the transition defense and that kind of stuff, Barren has –
you got to get back on defense. You play Barren.
Yeah. Well, and Barren was getting back on defense and causing some disruption even when Glasgow had opportunities to run, and Glasgow was not as effective at doing that. And going back to the next time that they meet, which will be at the end of this month on January 31st,
yeah.
I imagine one of the things that will be drilled into the Lady Scotties' heads by then, and we may see it starting tomorrow night when they play Allen County, is the necessity for intensity from start to finish, especially in transition defense, I would imagine.
Well, they came back the next night and beat a Hart County team that's been up and down, but they handled Hart County fairly easily at Hart County. So
they ended up beating them by 20, and that was a 1-point game, I think, in the third quarter.
Yeah, and then they just took over. So, Glasgow is, I've told you 1,000 times, I think Justin's an extremely good coach. He'll make all the adjustments he can, but I also will say this, Piper is too.
Yeah.
She's really, really good, and I've bragged on her before. She's, one of my former players, and she has adjusted to her team style really well, and that's a sign of a good coach.
I do think, despite whatever the results were from Friday night's games, whoever won, I think we around here in this county should really enjoy the fact that right now I think we have 4 quality coaches coaching the 4 teams. We have players that are a lot of fun to watch.
4 good teams, too.
4 good teams. And there have been years where this has not been the case. I mean, there have been years, either Barren or Glasgow, boys, girls, whatever, they've just not been very good.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily me talking about players or coaches, just that was a period of time. It happened that way. So enjoy this time while it lasts. If you're a fan of one of these teams.
Oh, it can change.
Yes, it can.
So I can attest to that. It can change. It can change in girls, boys.
Yeah.
It's player driven.
Yeah.
It is player driven, and you don't, unless you're cheating and recruiting players to come in, you're going to go through ups and downs.
Yeah.
And this Glasgow boys, this senior class has been good since they were 8th graders.
Yep.
You could see this was coming.
Yeah.
Barron's boys, they've had solid after solid after solid class. They got. When you had Nick Mabe and the Coomer boys, they were they've had a good run. Our girls are on a really good run after going through 4 or 5 very lean years.
Yeah.
Now they're on a good run, and it's going to go for a while because their middle school is good, and they got players coming.
Yeah.
So Barron's not going to go away. And Glasgow has had a really good sustained run as well.
Yep.
It's whether or not all 4 programs, no 4 programs are going to be good year in, year out. It just doesn't work out that way. But this is a time where I do think you have 4 good basketball teams.
And this isn't even us blowing smoke. I mean, because you look at the regional rankings for these 4 teams. I mean, we're also talking about, respectively, 4 of the best teams in the 4th region.
That's correct.
So, I mean, enjoy it no matter what the outcome is. Don't mealy mouth the results of one Friday night or whatever. Enjoy the teams.
It's one game.
Yep. Enjoy the teams as you got them right now. This is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back to talk about probably Derrick Henry a whole lot.
That's right.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
So, John, how many New England Patriots do you think woke up Sunday morning with broken limbs from trying to tackle Derrick Henry? I mean, it was brutal for them.
He's impressive.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, I mean Tennessee and Baltimore, who Tennessee plays this week.
Yeah, that's going to be a slobber knocker.
Yeah, you're talking about physical teams.
Yeah,
man. But yeah, Derrick Henry is. When the other team knows you're going to run it and you can't stop them.
Right.
That's when you can run it.
I think he had 1 run for a loss in that game. I think it was minus 2 yards on 1 run.
Yet New England had every chance in the world to still win.
Yeah, they did.
14-13, with 8 seconds to go in a game.
Well, I mean, we're talking about Derrick Henry, but Tennessee's punter is probably the MVP of the game.
I'll give you that.
Because, I mean, that looked like watching an old Bill Parcells kind of idea of how to play football. Field position, field the punts, have good special teams, especially on the punting.
Right.
Don't give up anything easy on special teams.
Yet, but that conservative style also kept New England in the game, and if it wasn't for an odd illegal man down field call,
right,
for a blocker that was probably a yard extra down the field on a Brady scramble.
Yeah.
I mean, New England was going to score. I would have put them on, I think, the 10 or 15-yard line with about 4 minutes to go. At least we'd had at least kicked a field goal.
What's interesting, too, about that particular call is there's no way that guy thought Tom Brady was going to scramble.
I think he just kind of lost where he was on the field.
Well, you could see his reaction afterward. Yeah. He was like, that was me. I mean, he just, how'd that do that?
And that nullified the biggest play of the biggest yardage of the game. It was about a 45, 50-yard pass there late in the game. So, football is there's always a play here or a play there. There's, I listened yesterday. I had to make a little trip yesterday. It's some of the talk radio, and it's just amazing to listen to the demise of the Patriots, or they got one guy said they were dominated. They were not dominated in any way by Tennessee. It's 14-13 with 8 seconds to go. And New England had it first and goal from the 1.
Oh my God!
And could not score.
That was the most impressive thing. That was the most New England thing against New England I think I've ever seen.
They ran the same play 3 times. They ran basically to the left and got nowhere. I'm just surprised that they didn't play action pass or do something.
Yeah.
But clearly there is an advantage, I will say, to play New England if you are like Mike Vrabel. Former players, it's been proven, have done quite well against Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
I think Bill Belichick's 14-13 against him.
Yeah.
And he's lost, I think his last 3 games have been 0-3 against his former players.
Yeah.
Or former players or former coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's clearly something that Vrabel and the guy from Miami, the guy from Detroit that lost to them, that gives them somewhat of an edge, because Vrabel made some calls that almost look like New England-like calls.
Yeah.
But it was not a domination anyway. But Tennessee did win, and Tennessee has they have a very physical team. Their quarterback has been the biggest turnaround for them. And he didn't have a great game yesterday. We didn't hurt him. He made a huge throw to kind of ice the game.
Yep.
The 3rd and 8, where he picked up the first down with about a minute and a half to go. That was huge.
Yep.
So he made some big throws when he had to. But the game could have gone either way. But a big win for the Titans.
Yeah, and like you said, they play the Ravens this coming Saturday. I think that's at 7:15, and you'll be able to hear that game on 105.3 The Point. So I'm looking forward to that one. That's going to be a very interesting game. Meanwhile,
they'll have to score more than 14. Well, they ended up with 20. They scored on the last play. They had to score more than 20 to beat Baltimore.
Well, and that 20 was almost justified because that same guy had dropped an earlier pick 6. I mean, that would have iced the game then. So I mean, all the talk at the end would be a moot point if he had picked that off and run it back. But anyway, meanwhile, Deshaun Watson, who I thought for most of the game was. I mean, he's fine, but it's like he's also not consistent. But the reason that you have him as your quarterback is the play that wins the game for them, where he manages to not get sacked by 2 guys and then throw a deep ball. I mean, it's just amazing, really.
True, and he got, again, this is another story that I think is spun sometimes to the benefit of however you want to spin it, you can spin it.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson's a great player. Great player at Clemson.
He's not Michael Jordan.
He's not Michael Jordan, but he's a great player.
Yeah.
And he made a tremendous play to get the win ultimately in overtime against Buffalo.
Right.
But none of that would have been possible, again, if Buffalo had not been called with an illegal block the play before, in which they were clearly in field goal territory and so forth.
Yeah.
Where Josh Allen quarterback for Buffalo, had made a lot of similar type of big plays as well.
Yes.
Scrambling, running, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and he had also played pretty well.
Yeah.
It just so happened that because of circumstances in which quarterbacks have no control sometimes of what the other side does.
Yeah, that's right.
It fell back into his lap where he can make a play.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, where all of a sudden he gets all the accolades because he made the final play in overtime, which is great. But there were some events that out of his hands that enabled him to get that opportunity. That's all I'm saying. The other guy, Josh Allen, also played well.
And the interesting thing about Deshaun Watson and Josh Allen, in my humble opinion, is they're very similar.
They are similar. I think Watson is a much better thrower of the ball.
Yeah, especially downfield.
Yes,
he does throw balls downfield pretty well.
Right, but Josh Allen is getting better and better.
Yeah.
And the coach of Buffalo is really good.
He is. I think that game was interesting because both the Patriots-Titans game and the Bills-Texans game, when you got to the end of it, you were like, whichever of these teams won this game, barring something unexpected, none of them have a chance next Saturday in the AFC if Kansas City and Baltimore continue to play the way they did during the regular season. I didn't see either one of them do anything that I thought you could trust.
Did you think before the game that Minnesota was going down and going to beat New Orleans?
You and I had this discussion a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about it felt like maybe the year of destiny for the Saints finally because they've had so many bad losses. But I think I told you that as long as Dalvin Cook's healthy, I've got some faith in the Vikings to do things. He looked good against the Saints. And now, did I think they were going to win that game? No.
Anything can happen in the pros. No, this is unlike the college game, in which a monkey can pick most of the college games at times.
Yeah.
The pros it's a different animal.
So I put down 4 names on this on this pre-show note list here. Derrick Henry, Deshaun Watson, Sean Payton.
Yes.
I put down Sean Payton because in all the years with the Saints, sometimes he's a coach that strikes me as somebody who out-coaches himself sometimes. Here's what I mean.
I'm ready for this one.
Yeah. So Taysom Hill is just punishing the Vikings. Mm-hmm. I know that Drew Brees is a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
He should be on the field.
Yes.
The play where he got hit and fumbled, the problem I had was not that Drew Brees was in there at quarterback instead of Taysom Hill. They took Taysom Hill off the field. And then for 3 straight plays, I think it was, and 3 plays in the first half, he has given the Vikings fits. I think he's got to stay on the field so that the Vikings have to think about him because as soon as he was off the field, they just rushed. I mean, they basically brought a pressure, and the Saints didn't block it, and they got to him. If they have to think about Taysom Hill in that situation, I think maybe that changes the dynamics a little bit.
Maybe. I mean, Taysom Hill was great.
Mm-hmm.
He has not been consistently used all year, but he's one of these. You put him on. He's Lamar Jackson-like in a lot of ways. I mean,
yes, he is.
You could put him in an offense and put people around him like Lamar Jackson, and I think you could have a stud.
Yep.
But you're not going to take Drew Brees out.
No.
I don't blame Sean Payton. I blame that fumble was Drew Brees.
Yeah.
He's got, you can't make that mistake.
Well, and that's what his thing is. He has a thumb injury that, is he 100% recovered from? He's been off and on since he's come back.
Yeah, he's been really good the last couple of weeks. They put up 38, 40 points. I'm not going to blame him. I'm not going to say now the thumb was it. It's just so hard. It's just from coaching, it's so hard to not rely on Drew Brees. I mean, it's just so tough. But Taysom Hill was the best player on New Orleans' team yesterday. I agree.
Let me give you another analogy. You have a hot shooter.
Yep.
You feed him the ball.
Yep.
Taysom Hill was hot.
Yep, he was. I agree.
I just think
but you can't.
You just got to feed him the ball.
He had it 3 straight times. It's they probably thought, let's fake it one time and.
Except he wasn't on the field. That was the
I
problem.
know, but you're also not thinking as a coach that Drew Brees is going to
get hit,
hold the ball 3 extra seconds and get sacked and lose the ball. That's just you're probably not thinking that.
Well, and if you look at that play, actually the guy who hit him, I can't remember who it was, actually just beat the guard on the inside.
Yeah, I mean
basically, Drew Brees fumbled, but he fumbled because that dude got beat in a way that did not give Drew Brees any time.
Right, I hear you. I mean, I think probably tasting hell, in fairness, was probably coming out just get a drink and go back in, because he's not an everyday player, has not been all year.
No, but I'm with you, though.
He's a specialist.
Yeah.
But I think he's a special player.
Yeah, in that game Sunday, he was the best. He probably was the best player on the field.
He really
than Dalvin
was.
Cook.
That's correct. And give the old quarterback who's been criticized forever, Kirk Cousins, credit. Played well. Made 2 fabulous throws in overtime.
Yes, he did. Meanwhile, the other name I have down here is Russell Wilson. I do not know how the Seahawks win other than Russell Wilson.
Well, how about Carson Wentz goes out with 3 minutes left, 3 minutes into the first quarter? That didn't hurt either.
No. yeah, and then Josh McCown actually played pretty well.
Played pretty good. I mean, no, Russell Wilson's a great player.
Yeah.
But they won 17-9. It's not like he won 30-24. And I do think the Carson Wentz injury made it possible where Seattle could play it. They weren't forced to put up 30 points.
No.
But Russell Wilson's he's a great player and wins on the road, great leader, all those things. But I think the key play of the game was the shot to the head that knocked the quarterback out.
Which also begs the question of, is that not a helmet-to-helmet hit?
I thought as soon as it happened, and I was shocked it was not talked about more on TV.
Because
I was shocked.
Nobody on TV even said that should have been a flag or
anything. It looked like They on some of the post game said, well, he led with his shoulder, but your head gets in the way. It looks like to me Carson Wentz was going down and he just dove on top of him with his head.
It's exactly what it looked like.
And I was shocked that it wasn't talked about. I'd be interested to see if anything comes about that, a fine or whatever. But that took their best player out of the game.
Yeah,
and it's hard to win with. No offense to their backup, but the 40-year-old Josh McCown was. He was coaching high school football in August.
Yeah,
he just signed him in October.
That's right. I mean, that is the key to the game is Carson Wentz.
Yeah, because they were so limited because their running backs were hurt. They had no receivers left. They were all out. So Carson Wentz was the Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
And you take Russell – I'll just say this. You take Russell Wilson out in the first quarter. Now, the difference is Russell Wilson never gets hurt. But if he's out, I don't think Seattle wins either. I don't blame Carson Wentz for this. He was also getting this crazy criticism. You can't rely on him. He's always hurt.
He got speared in the back of the head.
He got speared in the back of the head.
That would have been an illegal hit in the 70s.
Yeah, I mean, he got speared in the back of the head. Come on. It's just people sometimes talk just to be talking.
Yeah, one more thing, though, about the Seattle Eagles game. Despite all that, the Eagles had a 4th and 5 with a swing pass to Sanders that he dropped.
Catch the ball. Catch it.
If he catches it, the Eagles have an opportunity to tie the game, probably.
Those are little things, and you can say the same thing about Barren and Glasgow. Well, Barren had a 2-foot shot that they missed twice.
Yeah.
I mean, those things, you can criticize, well, this player should have been playing, or maybe they should have done this. Well, maybe you need to make a shot. Or need more.
Yeah.
How about catch the ball?
Right.
When you're getting paid, to catch passes.
Yeah.
Those things are also difference makers as well. The one thing I will say, I love watching NFL football outdoors like it was at Philadelphia.
Yes.
I just like watching it better than the indoor arena of New Orleans. And it's on grass too. I liked it. It's on grass, outdoor. I like that.
Yeah, my 2 favorite atmospheres was the game at New England. It was a little bit hazy.
I wish that was on grass, though. It's not.
Yeah, and then that Seattle, Philadelphia game. I think all the games be outdoors this coming weekend.
Yeah, but Baltimore is on grass. San Francisco grass.
Green Bay
grass.
Yep.
New England.
Nope, not New England.
I mean New England. Kansas City.
Yep. Grass.
It'll
be an old-time football weekend.
Right.
Everybody get ready to enjoy it. This is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, Conference USA basketball got started on Thursday for WKU's men and women. The men got to play their first 2 games at Diddle Arena, and they won them both. Beat North Texas, shot the lights out in that game.
Trailed at half.
Yeah.
Trailed by 8 against North Texas and put up 61 in the second half.
Yeah.
And what was amazing about it is that Hollingsworth went out with an injury about 2 minutes in the second half. with Western down, and they put the freshman guard in.
Yeah,
Rawls. Yes, and he did not substitute the rest of the half. So they played 18 minutes pressing, running, put up 61 points. Did not turn it over either, which is hard to believe. A team that has a problem turning the ball over didn't turn it over, and probably played the best second half they had all year. I mean, it's kind of amazing to play. I think Coach is committed to, one of the things that we've got to do is we're going to have to score. Mm-hmm. Without the point guard and without
Bassey,
we're going to have to play fast. We're going to have to score.
Yeah.
And, boy, they did that against North Texas.
Yeah.
And Carson Williams was really good.
Yes, he did.
He had 26, I think.
Yeah, he had a big night for him. Then they came back on Saturday at Diddle again and beat Rice. Not so prolific offensively, but probably better defensively in that game.
Yeah, Savage had a good game for him, and 2 good wins for him. We want to get off to a good start, especially want to defend your home court.
Right. And then the Lady Toppers went on the road, lost to North Texas, and kind of I would say that was a surprising loss.
It was.
I think they were figured to be better coming in.
They played like a team. Though I will say North Texas beat them last year at Diddle.
Yeah.
But I will say they played like a team that's been off for 15 days. Which is not what Coach Collins wanted. It was just something that was due to a game was moved, and they played like a rusty, slow, they had no rhythm. They were down 19 at one time.
Yeah.
And lost them, shot the ball terrible the entire trip. Even the game with Rice, in which they played much better against a much better team.
Yeah.
Just a disaster shooting the ball down in Texas.
Well, and the Rice game probably gained them some respect. I mean, because – especially after the loss to North Texas, I'm sure people thought they were going to roll into Rice and get blown out, but they competed pretty hard.
Yeah, it was a 1-point game, went in the fourth quarter, and they got hammered from the free throw line, like 30 to like 9 or 10. I think Coach Collins would. Texas. Yeah, welcome to Texas, but they've lost 3 straight. They got a home game this week. Got UAB on Thursday. That's the college day. It's education day.
Right. 11 a.m. game.
11 a.m. And then they got the rival middle on Saturday.
Yep. Meanwhile, the Kentucky men have gone from their beating Louisville to winning again. I mean, they're starting to kind of put together some things. Looks like
had defeated Missouri.
Yeah.
In a kind of a workmanlike game, but what I like is Nick Richards' play.
Yeah,
he's a junior now, and I really think that Richards has 21 points against Missouri. He also had a double against Louisville, and what I think is happening with Richards is his confidence is gaining because he has to play him.
Right,
and that's been one of my criticism with Calipari in the past at times. That I think he's had some. I think Richards, he probably could have gotten more out of him in the last couple of years, but he's had an awful short leash with him. Takes him out of line, gets frustrated with him. Well, he don't have a choice. He's got to play.
Right.
They've only got 3 post players.
Yeah.
And E.J. Manuel is not doing anything for him. So I think just the ability to play through your mistakes has really helped Nick Richards.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the Cardinals lost again.
Terrible loss to Florida State at home. Now, Florida State is good. They're ranked. Yeah. And they're long and athletic, but again, Louisville is now falling back to their mean. They're not a number 1 team. They'll fall probably around 15. I don't know. I haven't seen the rankings today. They're around 15.
Yeah.
Jordan Nora, their best player, actually played well. He had 34 points and they lost. And the problem with Louisville is their guards.
It's the thing that you said from the get-go is that their guards were going to have to be better than expected because they're just not good enough. And Nora is a great college player, but he needs somebody to kind of get the offense.
And their guards got dominated again, and that's the one area that you don't want to get dominated.
No. Also, but good news for the Kentucky Wildcats football fans. Bowling Green's Vito Tisdale announced that he signed with Kentucky. He's going to sign with Kentucky. He is committed to signing days in February, I think.
Second one is, yes.
Yeah. So he's committed to Kentucky. So over Alabama, which was one of his choices. So good for Kentucky to get that one. Also, Tua Tagovailoa is going pro, and so is Jared Willis, who's the Lafayette guard at Alabama.
That's correct.
This is Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.